Or maybe there's a spell that repairs it. But leader, how about you knock off that weird way of talking? We're the only ones here, you know. Gringham's eyebrows bent to a dangerous angle, but then he broke into a smile. Arg, I am bone tired, all this thee and thou hogwash. What kinda lunkhead talks like that? Nice work, but like he said, when it's just us, we really don't mind if you talk normal. Now I shouldn't he talking all formal like makes you sound like a worker people can rely on. You know it's my policy to talk that way for work, because it's a pain to switch gears. Gringham responded to his teammates' wry smiles with one of his own. He was the third son of a farmer in the kingdom. Everyone knows that splitting up land among heirs forever is foolish, because the shares get smaller and smaller to the point where barely anything can be harvested, and the family's power withers. That's why the eldest son inherits the estate. The second son could stay and assist, but the third son was often in the way. Because of this, it wasn't rare for third sons to head to the city to earn a living. Gringham had been blessed with both physical ability and friends, so he was able to make a success of himself. However, because he'd been born a peasant, the backup of the backup, to maintain the household he'd received zero education. He couldn't read or write, and he didn't know anything about manners or etiquette. Certainly what was prioritized in workers wasn't education, but perfection in request fulfillment. But for the leader of a team, that alone wouldn't be enough. He studied desperately, but he didn't have as much aptitude for it as he did for physical ability. As a result, he ended up in a fairly shabby state. The only reason no one had usurped his position as leader was that his teammates valued him for everything besides his education level. He started talking in a strange way to avoid embarrassing them. He wanted requesters to think this guy talks funny because it makes his team stand out. He probably still got teased for it, but that was better than having someone think, well, he's just a not terribly bright farmer who became a team leader, so we can expect much more than this. Very well, break time is over. Let us go, men. No one had any objections to Gringham's declaration, so they began to move. First, the thief went inside to make a careful search. The remaining members jammed thick iron rods in the door. This would prevent it from shutting on them, even if a trigger was tripped. Then they closed it more than halfway to prevent light from leaking outside. While the thief performed his careful examination of the interior, Gringham and the others kept a vigilant watch outside. They had no choice but to use light, so someone might have seen them. Gringham was lying on his belly, keeping an eye on their surroundings, when the thief inside, having reached the flag, was taking a focused look at its bottom edge. Finally, he held out a hand as though he'd steeled his resolve. He touched the flag, then quickly withdrew his hand. Okay, no problems that I can see. You guys can come in. Watching Gringham and the others enter, he pointed up at the flag. This will probably fetch a good price. It's woven with precious metal threads. Why, precious metal? Who would hang something like that up in a place like this? The entire party gasped in shock. Then they all hurried to the flag and took turns touching it. The coolness they felt really was metal. From the way it sparkled, the thief's assessment was probably correct. Estimating the weight from its size and adding the artistic value would make it worth quite a lot. This is a win for the requester. Though we haven't recuperated the cost of hiring us, no, all 4 teams, there must be a pile of treasure just waiting for us here. Should we take it right now? Gringham answered the thief's question. This will be rather unwieldy, and probably heavy as well. Let us recover it later. Any objections? No, it would definitely be hard to do our job if we were carrying this. Regarding the results of my inspection, there are no traps and no hidden doors. Very well, I am counting on thee. Gringham turned to the arcane caster, a wizard who cast a spell as if taking the cue. Detect magic, I can sense any magic tricks. Of course, that doesn't count anything they might be hiding with stealth magic. Then I guess there's nothing left to investigate. Shall we head to the main building? Everyone's eyes gathered on the sarcophagus in the middle of the room. The thief took his time giving it a thorough once-over before announcing there were no traps. Gringham and the warrior nodded at each other and began sliding the stone cover off. It was fairly large, so they figured it would be heavy, but it was far lighter than expected. They nearly lost their balance when they put some muscle into it. Once the lid was off, light reflected from inside innumerable brilliant sparkles. Gold, silver, gems of various colors, all kinds of accessories giving off countless polished gleams. Over 100 gold coins were scattered around. The flag had given Gringham a hunch, but this sight made him grin from ear to ear. The thief made careful observations, then reached inside and pulled out one of the many sparkles, a golden necklace. It was a gorgeous piece. It looked like a simple gold necklace, but the chain was ornamented with minute carvings. 100 gold would be a cheap estimate, someone said. Depending on where you took it, you could get 150. Everyone reacted differently to the thief's appraisal. One person whistled, another smirked. They all shared the same delight and greed in their eyes. We get half, so at the very least this is 50 additional gold pieces, 10 per person. That's a marvelous bonus. These ruins might be a mountain of treasure. Wow, this is ridiculously amazing. It really is. But what a waste to put all this treasure out here. I'll find a good use for it. At that, the wizard plucked a ring set with a huge ruby out of the pile and kissed the jewel. It's ginormous. The priest scooped some of the gold coins into his hands and let them spill back out. The bright clinking of coin on coin echoed throughout the room. I've never seen gold pieces like this before. I wonder what era, what country they ray from. The thief put a scratch in one using a knife and smiled in admiration. These are quality coins. They ray double the weight of the trade currency. If you consider them works of art, you might be able to get a little more. This is A couple more members joined in as if they couldn't hold back the laughter. Even their share of this alone was no joke. Men, let us save our prayers for afterward. Let us recover these items as quickly as possible and head to the main building. If we ray late, our share will decrease. All right. A spirited response to Gringham's call rang out. It was full of excitement and enthusiasm. The huge warrior statues, so lifelike they seemed liable to move at any moment, guarded the large mausoleum in the center of the ruins. They looked like knights protecting their king. Hecarim was at one of their feet, watching one of the 4 smaller mausoleums. After a little while, he caught sight of 5 figures rushing out of it. They moved like the wind. He confirmed, to a neurotic degree, that nothing seemed off as they sprinted. They were trying to stay out of sight. He also confirmed that no one in the area was watching them. A few seconds later, seeing there were no issues as they approached, he let out a small sigh of relief. He stepped out from the shadow of the huge statue and gave the sign. Gringham, running at the head of the line, caught it immediately and jogged over to him. Gringham, you took long enough. My apologies, we seem to have kept you waiting. It's not as if we decided on a meeting time, so it's no problem. More importantly, let us get out of here and decide what to do next. Hecarim ducked down and began leading them while keeping an eye on their surroundings. As soon as they had started walking, Gringham asked, I must know, did your team discover any riches? Hearing his voice full of excitement he couldn't quite contain, Hecarim remembered his own team a few minutes before and grinned. Quite a bit, we ray thrilled. And the old man said the same thing. Your team as well then. Coming here was the right decision. Sure was. We'll have to thank the great man buried here. Indeed. Still, after discovering so much, we must be prepared for the possibility that the main building contains nothing. Oh, I bet there's more. Well then, how much would you wager? Now you ray talking. We'll find more treasure in the tomb, and I'll win some off you. Awesome. The only problem is that it seems like we'll both bet in the same direction. The pair didn't say anything, but the corners of their mouths curled up sharply. Without a doubt. I have a question for thee, however. What is that? Gringham was eyeing something that could be called a stone monument. It stood at the base of one of the huge statue's feet. That. Hecarim filled him in on the results of the investigation without stopping. He explained how no one from the other 3 teams who had already arrived knew what the writing said. Everyone had sort of been hoping someone on Gringham's team would know. It looks like a stone monument. It has some kind of writing carved in it. What dost thou mean by some kind of writing? That's awfully vague. We don't know what language it is. It's not the kingdom's language or the empire's, and apparently, it's not one of the ancient languages from this area either. It might not even be human. The only thing we can make out is the number 2.0. A number, common sense says that would be the year this place was built, but it's too low. Arch was saying maybe it's the key to the riddle of these ruins, but well, maybe we should remember it for later just in case. Yes. But as they passed by the statues and went up a long, shallowly inclined white stone staircase, the entrance to the central mausoleum loomed before their eyes. Smells of dead people. Yeah, sure does. I've smelled this many times in the fog on the Catsi Plain. Hecarim agreed with Gringham's murmur. What hung in the air, mingling with the cold, wasn't the putrefying kind of stench that triggered nausea. It was a smell peculiar to graveyards and undead. The tomb may have been tidy, but there were definitely undead inside. The party was ready. When they entered, they found themselves in an open hall. To each side were too many slabs of rock to count. On the opposite side was a staircase leading down. The door at the bottom was wide open. The air coming from inside was terribly frigid. This way. With Hecarim acting as their guide, Gringham and his team began descending the stairs. At the bottom, straight in front of them, was a door to a burial chamber. There didn't appear to be any other doors, and there were all the others: Hecarim's team, Foresight Elia's team, Tenbu and Palpatra's team. They were all gathered in a space smaller than the mausoleum, but still plenty spacious at the top of the stairs. Okay, what should we do now? The plan was to split up and gather info on the interior. Did anyone have any other ideas after exploring the smaller mausoleums? After Hecarim spoke, he surveyed the group. It didn't seem like anyone had come up with new proposals. Was it ambition or just the light making their eyes glitter? He didn't know, but they sparkled for certain. The excitement on their faces said they were ready to dive right into this tomb. Then he had an idea. My team will check around the outside to search for hidden doors. The members looked put out despite the fact that their leader had spoken. They'd seen such a pile of riches. Who could agree with that idea, even if he was a veteran? They were probably visualizing the treasure escaping their grasp. How about it? We may have investigated the ground level, but we didn't do a thorough job. Maybe there's another way in hidden beneath the mausoleum. And shouldn't we examine the graveyard? Yes, right. I once heard a bard sing of the vast Sasacha ruins. The bard said there was a quick, safe route to the center hidden near the main entrance. Yeah, Gringham, we already examined this room, and unfortunately there aren't any secret doors here. So rather than taking a loss, I'd like you to split anything you guys find on this level with us. Maybe 10% from each team, and then if you find a lower level, will you give us first dibs tomorrow? I have no objections to that proposal. Gringham was the first to reply. Hecarim agreed a bit later. Okay, then no one seems to have any objections. But what about you, Uzruth? Personally, I take issue with it, but if it's only 10%, then it's fine. The old man smiled naively in response to Elia's half-sarcastic remark. Elia made a sour face upon his attitude being evaded so simply. Oh, sir, in that case, I'd like to ask you a favor. There was a flag, woven out of precious metal thread, in the mausoleum we searched, but it was so unwieldy that we didn't bring it back with us. Could we have you go and recover it? My team is in a similar predicament to Hecarim's. Sorry to make extra work for thee, but we would much appreciate if you recovered ours as well. Then take our stuff too. Elia jerked his chin at a slender elf. She stumbled as she put down the huge sack she was carrying. Got it. Is there anything else you want to leave or have us grab? No one replied to Palpatra's question. Okay, then as I proposed, we'll search the ground level. Do be careful in the tomb. If you see anything with monetary value, feel free to leave it for us. Haha, we'll leave the monsters, but unfortunately for you, sir, we'll be taking every last bit of treasure. Some of the workers chuckled and Hecarim said, okay then, shall we go? Everyone accepted his suggestion immediately, so they took a step forward. Their eyes were bright with anticipation and greed as they took a step into the unknown ruins, this subterranean tomb. Hecarim opened the door at the end of the room, and a hallway extended farther in. By this time they were expecting it, but this hallway had been kept clean as well. There wasn't a speck of mold or moss on the stone pathway. The walls on either side had double levels of hollows. These hollows contained things the size of human bodies wrapped in shrouds. It didn't have that corpse stench, but there was some kind of smell. Perhaps it was the chill in the air, or an atmospheric hint that someone had died. Pale light shone from the ceiling every so often, but there were definitely gaps. Darkness remained here and there. Hecarim didn't have any trouble walking, but it was dark enough that he worried they might overlook something. He felt like he should have brought a light. Robber, is that body registering as an undead? No. Arch responded, oh yeah. She turned toward a body, took out a dagger, and sliced open the shroud. Seeing that, two others left the main party to inspect the body with her. Judging from height and build, there's an extremely good chance this is human adult male. No clothes, so so we still can't tell what era these ruins are from, huh? These ruins really are a mystery. The style of architecture doesn't indicate a time period. The burial method doesn't either. They could even be from over 600 years ago. If they were, it'd be a historic find. Among informed experts, it would be a point of debate, but these people were there to work. Flustered upon realizing Hecarim and Gringham were staring at them coldly, Arch hurried to give the results of their inspection. We still don't know which era these ruins were built in, or what their story is. Understood, can we move on? I want to get to the monster killing. Going along with disapproving Elia, the party proceeded down the hall, but they stopped again after only a couple of steps. They tensed into battle stances, holding the weapons they had already drawn. From somewhere up ahead, they could hear the sound of numerous bones clacking. Glimpses of the undead running down the hall flashed in the ceiling lights. As the distance closed and the identity of their opponents became clear, the workers couldn't believe their eyes. A shock rippled through them. This is just ridiculous. Whoa, are you serious, huh? Skeletons, really? As soon as someone said the name of the monsters, laughter filled the hallway. They couldn't hold it back. See, moan. Skeletons? Look how many of us there are. Skeleton-type monsters didn't look all that different from one another, so it could be difficult to tell what type one was facing at a glance. But from their presence, it was easy to assert that these were plain old skeletons. If someone was sending out scouts to test our strength, they probably would have sent something stronger. I got it. There isn't actually any monster ruling these ruins. Either that or it's one so incompetent it can't even estimate our fighting power, or it could be a half-wit who hasn't even figured out there's a raid happening. They couldn't stop laughing. But I just can't believe it's skeletons. Maybe all the treasure was in the mausoleums up on the ground level. That would be the worst. For workers equivalent to mithril rank adventurers, skeletons were incredibly weak. And whose idea had it been to send fewer skeletons than the amount of workers? Facing the 6 skeletons standing in their way, they exchanged glances. Who was going to take them? Not it. Elia clearly asserted himself. Everyone understood how he felt. Then I shall lead. Gringham stepped to the front in a single smooth motion. What were the skeletons thinking? They had barely existent intelligence. Did they imagine the warrior who stepped forward had been shoved out of formation, or was it something else? They attacked all at once. However, the axe and shield clobbered them. It only took a few seconds, no, even less than that. Gringham smashed the skeletons, stomped on their remains, and let out a tired-sounding sigh. It was due not to exhaustion from combat, but to the utterly pathetic fact that his first battle in these huge, untouched ruins he was so happy to explore as a worker was against skeletons, the lowest tier of undead. How fragile. It seems they really were just skeletons, but it wouldn't be wise to let our guard down. Let us proceed cautiously, keeping in mind the possibility that stronger undead could appear. Everyone pursed their lips and proceeded farther into the ruins, heads filled with fantasies of the mountain of treasure that surely awaited them. Sheesh. They've gone. Yes, they have. They may be workers, but we all shared a meal and they were our teammates on this job. I hope they make it back safely. What do you think, Momon? They were probably all going to die. Aints answered in a low voice, and the adventurer team leader who asked the question was taken aback. Crap, I just said what I thought. No, I mean they should all be prepared to die. These are untouched ruins. Who knows what kind of danger awaits? Wishful thinking will only get them hurt. I see, thanks for your concern. That seemed pretty forced, but I guess he's taking it at face value. Works for me. The leader must have been nodding, because he had blindly taken the adamantite rank adventurer's words in a positive light. Aints' work being friendly with him during the whole trip to Nazarick to get him to show goodwill had paid off. Well then, I think I'll take the first rest, as we planned. Aints walked toward his tent, which he naturally shared with Narbarrel. He knew some of the humans suspected their tent was at a distance from the others. This was so no one would be able to overhear any rough, heavy breathing. Or rather, the leader of the other team had told him this. The man seemed to want to get closer to fellow adventurer Momon more than the workers. He had been passing information he'd gotten from them to Aints. Aints entered the tent with Narbarrel, shut the opening, and took a look outside just to be safe. No one was paying attention to them. On the contrary, it seemed like they were purposely avoiding looking in their direction. I was right to not outright deny that our tent was a love nest. Now no one thinks it's weird that we pitched it at a distance, and no one will approach or pay too much attention to us. Instead of losing anything by doing that, they had actually gained a lot. Aints took off his helmet and revealed his skull face. Okay, Nabe Narborough.